Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that continues every single day to celebrate the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi such an amazing place. And Mississippi, for that matter. That especially applies today, because we have the Lieutenant Governor for the state of Mississippi. I'm not going to give you a bunch of speeches going into the show today. Let's just welcome the Honorable Delbert Hosemann to Coast Vue and say good morning. How are you doing, Delbert?
I'm doing great, Ricky. I've been worried about the people on the coast during the Hurricane Ida, and then also the COVID. And then when we bought Cat Island, we re-nourished it with 250 feet of sand. I'm worried that's up on Highway 90 somewhere. So I've been worried about the coast a good bit, actually.
Well, I don't blame you. You know, you're sort of, you have big tentacles down in the coast of Mississippi. I know you love it down here. You, as Secretary of State, your role with Tidelands and so on were really important. But hey, I want to do a little reflection on this past year. You came into office in January 2020, but before we do that, let's stick on the Hurricane Ida topic for just a second and just simply say, I came to appreciate over the last couple of weeks, or certainly the last week, that this whole notion of we dodged a bullet probably doesn't apply well, because at the end of the day, if you got water in your house or you were involved in that tragic incident on Highway 26 in George County, you don't feel like you dodged anything. And I think one of the mayors I talked to last week, I talked to most of them last week, is they said something like we dodged the brunt, and I think that's the way to say it. Because if we would have had taken the brunt of Hurricane Ida, man, so much of what we love would have been significantly challenged once again. And I don't want to wish bad on anyone. I was the president publisher of the Times-Picayune-Nola.com. I have so many friends in New Orleans, and the stories I'm hearing out of New Orleans are unbelievably challenging. But, you know, I do think we can, as a general rule, we can say our prayers today and thank goodness that we didn't take a direct hit. That's probably about where you are, isn't it?
It is. I watched Burlington go under. We had 2 loss of lives and some very seriously injured people from the Highway 26 incidents. I was talking to MDOT this morning earlier. And of course, I'm very worried that we may have some other failure along that road or other road. And so we're asking them to check all of them as to why this occurred and is there a similar event possible somewhere else. But no, when you look at it, it's like the magnitude. This hurt a lot, and it's going to cost us a lot of money. And we had disruption of a lot of things. We got cruising the coast coming, that kind of thing. But in the scheme of things, you're right. It wasn't the scale that we experienced with Katrina operation, thank God. So I think everything is measured by Katrina. But it doesn't mean that we didn't lose a lot of money, that we have a lot of damage. We have flooding issues and unfortunately highway issues and a loss of life.
Yeah, I had Sean Tyndall on, as you well know, Sean Tyndall, the Public Safety Commissioner for the state of Mississippi. But one of the things he said is, coming out of the Highway 26 incident and other situations where people drove into deep water and ended up having to be rescued, et cetera, is that in a time like this, even though the storm may have passed, if the rain is still here and the wind is still here, there are potential challenges lurking around every corner. And the thing that he said is that he just urges people in times like this is just simply slow down and be super aware of your environment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really good advice, don't you?
I do. You don't know when the tree's going to fall over. If you're riding down the road not paying attention, it may fall on you or your house or all the others. Yeah, it's weather awareness. I think we talk about that a lot. I think our people are better at it in Mississippi than they are otherwise because we've been burned before. So I think we do better at that, but you just can't assume that even that the road's going to be there. I mean, you just got to really be careful.
You really do. So we'll move on, and I want to talk for an extended period of time about COVID, and we'll come back to that in just a second. But you took office in January of 2020. You had a couple of like normal months, and then this thing called COVID started to become like, the volume got turned up pretty loud and to the point that it was really, really affecting the legislature's ability to do things and changing your focus and whatever. When you look back on this past year and a half, what do you think about?
Well, first I think about how many people, we lost almost 8,000 people who died from this. And then thousands, 400,000 had this sickness and illness. I had it, and it was debilitating. And it's debilitating for the 2 weeks that I had it, but it's also a slower recovery. And I think first about the people, and that was driving us in the legislature when we started putting off the session and doing those kinds of things. We're working blind on that, the speaker and I were. But we felt like we wanted to have as least exposure as we could, and we wanted to help as many people as we could as we went through this, and Dr. Dobbs and all of that was going on. The second thing is, in some way, I feel robbed a little bit about the things that I wanted to do that were on my agenda, that people hired me to do, and that I couldn't get to. We had this bifurcated session. We had to go away. Well, first we got in a fight with the governor who was going to spend the money. Then that worked itself out eventually. And then we had a June meeting in which we had to do the budget by June the 30th, but we couldn't do any of the other legislative processes because we couldn't have everybody up here. When we did that, I got COVID. My chief of staff got COVID. Manley Barton almost died. I mean, we had a whole bunch of people who had to get something done in a week or two, and we became a super spreader. So that really closed us off again and made us even more aware of all that was going on. We had to come back again at some point in time in September and October and we left ourselves open, which we never had in the legislature, to call our own selves back at a later time. So when we came back, we had to address the first tranche was like economics for small businesses were failing, healthcare, some broadband, a lot of different things. The unemployment compensation, we had 700 million when we started, and it went down to like 200 million. So we were paying people out. We ended up paying over $1 billion in unemployment compensation to Mississippians who are out of work. So all of that and refunding that, getting the money back into those different pockets was very hotly debated, and we reached some conclusions. And then we had to come back in October, and thank goodness, we pulled some money that wasn't being used, and we put $10 million into building ICU beds, which were built at Singing River Hospital, you're familiar with, and others, these ICU and negative pressure rooms. And so we built those all over the state. Today, every one of them is occupied. So we recognized that things were happening and this was difficult, and all of those were built out by, I think, by the end of the year. So we had a lot of moving parts around the COVID that didn't allow us to address other issues and other things that we wanted, particularly on matters involving education. We did get a teacher pay raise this last year. The structure for technical training, which Mary Graham and y'all do on the coast so well, but we haven't had a workforce czar before. We wanted to have one. Now we have one. Mr. Miller is doing that. He will allocate money out to these entities that are training. So we had a lot of different things that were going on in addition to COVID, and COVID kept backing off the amount of time that I had to really focus on making sure this was the best it could be. So it's almost like a lost year, a year I don't ever want to replicate, I can tell you that.
Well, just as an observer, someone who's observed government work for a long time, there were good moments and bad moments along the way, but at the end of the day, I would say it's not lost time. The work that you guys did to keep focus, it's almost like, the way I describe it, it's almost like Katrina came and left, and it left a mess, and we had years to clean it up. This is like COVID is a hurricane that sat on top of us, and it's still sitting on top of us. And it really changes priorities. It changes everything that you do. I think as a general rule, you guys have done a pretty good job of staying on top of the things that really are important. And I know it's got to be frustrating because you have an agenda. You have things you want to focus on, but you're not able to do that because you've got to shift your focus. And I think that's normal in a disaster moment like we're dealing with. Hey, one other thing I want to mention is that, you were a very successful lawyer. You had been in law for for a long time. You understand what it's like to run a large firm, et cetera. You come into Secretary of State, you do that job very well. And then you become lieutenant governor. And, we've always said the lieutenant governor of Mississippi is constitutionally strong. The governor in Mississippi is constitutionally weak, actually, and it takes the power of leadership to be a good governor. I would cite, for example, Haley Barbour or Phil Bryant. But as you come into this job, I'm just curious, do you find yourself thinking at times, wow, I've got a lot of responsibility as lieutenant governor. I can push things forward. I can stop things. How does, now that you're in the job, has your perception changed about any of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
The short answer is yes. We watched this from afar. I had an office here for 12 years as Secretary of State. But when I came on to here, the ability to pick your chairman, allocate where the bills go, have dramatic input on the amount of spending that goes on, all of that came on with COVID was very difficult. I usually try to compartmentalize things to make them work in an organized structure. For example,
hey Delbert, let's do this. We're coming to the end of this segment. For example, we'll pick it up right there because I have a sense that this whirlwind of coming into that position and having to put all these obligatory things in place and then having COVID sort of parallel track at the same time, it had to have been overwhelming. But anyway, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann.
Hey South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport or on allentoyota.com.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visits.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk, Mississippi. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann with me. And when we went to the break, we were talking about the responsibilities of the Lieutenant Governor. And the point that he was making, and I'll let him continue here, was all these committee appointments he had to do. He had an agenda that he wanted to work on. Then COVID came on. So you're doing all these parallel tracks of work simultaneously. I don't know how you sort of embodied all that and figured out getting it done.
Well, the way that I've done, I'm a tax lawyer. So whatever that means, or assets or liabilities, that's kind of the way I've always done it. So we try to compartmentalize by, for example, getting our technical board right, raising our teachers' salaries right. We want to do an economic stimulus package for small businesses, and that produces a higher educated, higher waged workforce. Our workforce is 55%, our labor workforce participation rate. We want to raise that. We want to raise it with high paying jobs, not just a $10 an hour or $12 an hour job. We want to raise it with high rate. So we're very structured. And I came back here just yesterday. We were working on the fact that we've got 1.8 billion to spend of the new money. And so we're hiring people that will accept the applications, grade them. So we come in January, we can allocate our money out to our cities and our counties in a very organized way, as opposed to just whoever knew somebody when they got up here. So we try to do that. It gets disrupted when you have this kind of thing. Our hospitals are just at wit's end. I've been to the ICU labs. I've been to Singing River, for example. I visited with Lee just last week, and the other hospital directors. We're losing our nurse workforce. They're exhausted. The economics are horrible. It's costing $5,000 or $10,000 a day to keep people who may not have any insurance or any ability to pay at all. So it's just a really conundrum, and that has been the major focus for us, is how can we address that? And I have some ideas about that, particularly for nurses and for hospitals. If the governor calls us into a special session, I hope he'll put it on the call so we can address that. If he does not, I anticipate addressing it in January.
So let's do this for a second, because I want to hear your ideas about that. So I want to make sure that, as I mentioned to you out the air, when you think about child abuse or a child with cancer, it's hard to contemplate that. It's too often out of sight, out of mind. It's there, but it's hard to contemplate it. It's hard to think about ICU units full of COVID patients on ventilators. You had the opportunity to spend time at Singing River, so did I. Then at Ocean Springs, 16 rooms, 16 ventilated patients. In the surgical intensive care, 12 patients, all on ventilators. In the emergency room, 3 patients. This is when I was there, 3 patients. And I look back at their most recent data, and they hospitalized 133 COVID patients in one day. One day. Now, you know what those numbers mean in terms of how many will end up in ICU and potentially how many of those will end up on ventilators. If you have 39 in this particular report, 39 people on ICU, 39 of them on ventilators, you know what the stats are when you get on a ventilator. It's not good. I just wanted to share just a couple of quick things with you. Things that I heard from nurses while I was there. You heard the same thing. I just want to say it out loud, and you can share whatever you heard as well, but that it's a war zone. I was really interested to hear nurses in tears telling the story of when you have bad situations occur simultaneously, and you literally are having to decide which room to rescue. Think about as a nurse, having to make that choice. One nurse said that it looks heroic, but it's not that at all. It's sweaty, it's hard, it's chaotic, it's bloody. One 17-year nurse talked about how burnout is beginning to settle in. And, I could go on and on. Just in Singing River alone, 120 vacancies, nursing vacancies as we speak. And that doesn't account for respiratory therapists and all these other people that are dealing with it. I mean, it is a really tough situation. Like I said, it's like this storm is sitting on top of us. And while we may peak with Delta and then this fourth wave, COVID hasn't gone anywhere. What's the impact on the healthcare system going forward as we hit another wave and maybe another wave? When you think about all this, there are tactical things we have to do, but there are some really important strategic things we have to do too, isn't there?
There are, and like I've told you, it's compartmentalized. We have an immediacy problem. That's the economics of nurses being offered $100 an hour somewhere else where we're paying them $30 an hour, and you certainly can't you can't say for that kind of difference in compensation why they wouldn't be attracted to it. So we have an immediacy problem. And my solution to that, after talking with Lee and the other hospital administrators last week, was to come with they're on 12-week patterns, to come with a signing bonus for them to stay, and then pay them a significant amount at the end of the 12-week period, so that they know they're working towards X amount of dollars. They'll stay with us for 12 weeks, they'll get X amount of dollars more, and we discuss the amount of those dollars. And, it's obviously in Mississippi, it would be in the tens and tens of millions of dollars to go to that. The second part would be the long-term consequences. Now, last month, I gave out, I think, 57 scholarships to medical students who have agreed, if we pay their medical school expenses, most of them, not all of them, that they will stay in Mississippi for 4 years in rural Mississippi. So I want to do the same thing for nursing. We will give you credit, or will pay for part or some or all of your tuition if you'll agree to stay in Mississippi for 4 years and practice nursing. And that has worked exceptionally well on getting rural areas doctors, and I think it'll work especially well on nurses. It'll tie them to the community for some fixed period of time versus having all this movement in and out. Long term, we can't have anybody further than 25 miles from 25 minutes from a emergency room. That's got to be part of it. So as we go to look at the aggregation on the coast, you're blessed. You have a number of different ones. Memorial, you got these others. Oshner's is in with Hancock, and then under some other sharing arrangements. So you've got that. In rest of rural Mississippi, we don't. And I want to make sure that we do have that the same assets that you have are available at least within 20 or 25 minutes of every other person in Mississippi. That doesn't cover the primary care portion of this. Now, for whatever reason, we supersize too much, and we don't walk as much as we need to on the beach or whatever, but we have to get our people access to primary care and catastrophic care. The primary care would allow us to keep them healthy, working, contributing to the community, paying taxes and all that other stuff. So we want to keep our people healthy. So that primary care will be part of this. I think the first thing is to get our hospitals, our nurses, our doctors set, and then we need to come and address. And probably we'll go with Senator Black. Will be holding hearings on this sometime in the next month or two, on how we address these other issues that come along with healthcare. My primary concern right now is my doctors, my nurses, and my hospitals.
I can't agree more. I think that's where the focus really needs to be. My place is up outside of Greenwood, and I know, leaders in Greenwood really well, and have stayed in touch with them about, for example, the Greenwood Hospital. The rural hospitals were already, really just eking by anyway in normal life without COVID.
Right.
And you add COVID to that situation, and man, it's a dire situation in our rural areas. And so now, literally every hospital, whether it's Memorial in Gulfport or Jackson or Singing River or the rural hospitals, they're all challenged dramatically. And it's not like this storm is going to go away. There's going to probably be another wave, and we've just got to get better at this. I want to commend you, though, Delbert, because too many elected leaders for a period of time were trying to have it both ways on the vaccination. They're trying to walk around this discussion about vaccination, in my view, sort of playing a little bit to the anti-vax crowd. But the fact is, a lot of the anti-vax crowd, a recent study by Kaiser determined that they're acting on misinformation. If you give them the right information, you give them the best information, they're usually going to choose to go ahead and get the vaccination. But you have urged people to get the vaccination, and you see that. I mean, that's what we have right now. That's the tool we have to combat it. What's your evolving thinking about let me just give it, around 40% vaccinated in Mississippi. On the coast is in the 30s. So it's really not good.
It's not. And you have to look at this. First of all, I had COVID. So that was my come to Jesus meeting. When I had it myself, I realized what it meant, and I couldn't walk 100 steps, and very difficult. And we may have had another result pretty easily, quite frankly. So that drove me to talk about yourself, of course, your family, your fellow citizens, when you expose yourself to that, you expose a lot of other people in your church, and those all come with that particular exposure. The second thing is to watch our people in these ICU beds. Basically, you're right. When you go on the ventilator, your chances are less than 50-50 of coming off of it. And basically, you suffocate to death. And when you've got healthcare providers, there may be people who shouldn't take the vaccine. I think every individual needs to look at their healthcare provider, but not at a screen with green dots. The healthcare provider cares if you live or not. The internet doesn't give a damn whether you die or not. So I would encourage people to take a look at their own healthcare providers, follow the logical part. It's been approved by the national group now, that Pfizer has anyway. And it's hard for me to see my people suffering and dying when they don't have to.
Right.
We just buried one of my friends, a lawyer from over in Vicksburg, who didn't get vaccinated, and he just died. Great guy, prime of life, children, grandchildren. If you don't have to have that happen, please do that. Then getting away from the human side, Ricky, how am I supposed to sell Mississippi for people to come here as the least vaccinated state? What are the economics of that? The personal economics, if you go in the hospital, it's $5,000 a day or whatever. How are you going to pay that? But in the big picture, how am I going to attract people to come to my state when I have that kind of reputation? So
it's tough. It's tough.
It's very difficult. And our people are the most generous, most religious on the Gulf Coast, everywhere. And yet we seem to want to ignore how much we care about each other. In a hurricane or something, everybody shows up, somebody gets sick, you bring food, they drive the kids to school. We got a great group of people. And so how can we then ignore getting a free vaccine so we get one of my buddies sick, or my family members, my wife? It just it doesn't compute to me.
We're going to continue to focus on it. We're out of time, Delbert. Let's do this. We'll come back together again in a couple of weeks, see how things are going, see what your perspective is on the situation. I've really enjoyed you taking a few minutes to visit with me today.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love the coast, and I miss being down there as much as I'd like to. I know we're struggling a little bit now, but we have better days coming, and I'm excited about the future possibilities and the growth potential, particularly on the Mississippi Gulf Coast.
I am too, and God bless you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Yes, sir. We'll see you after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
Hey, South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and,
Wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. I really enjoyed that conversation with Jimmy Rafferty, the mayor of Pass-Christian. Man, what a great career he's had. He's leveraging all that experience to be a great mayor now for the city of Pass-Christian. Speaking of leveraging your history as a business person and, sort of a jack of all trades, the former dentist, Jay Willis, who's the new mayor of the city of Pass-Christian. But, you spent a year, you and I talked about this before, you spent years as a dentist and you were in the dental development business, and now you're the mayor of Pascagoula. How's it been?
Oh, it's been great. It all fits. I feel I was fully prepared for what I jumped into, and things have been great, Ricky. Thanks.
Well, I told you I'd be remiss if I didn't add to this. Your daughter is, I know her husband really well. I've gotten to know your grandkids through them, but they're very proud of you, and I can tell that you have an incredibly supportive family around you. For every great man, you're going to find an amazing woman and an amazing family behind them if they're successful. That's true of you too, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is, Ricky, and I know you understand that of all the things in our lives and all the hats we wear, being a father and a grandfather now is probably the most important thing that I do.
It really is. So let's talk for a second about Hurricane Ida. So here you are, a new mayor. You look south and you see this, this incredibly strong storm. Obviously off our shore, it was a Category 4 storm. All the models had it going in one direction, but we know from our history that it could always make that turn north. What was going through your head as you contemplated, you became the mayor of the city and that it might get challenged again? It probably was a moment of, please, Lord, don't let it hit us, but give me strength if it does.
A lot of that, and also being prepared in the event that it did. I grew up in Pascagoula. I was probably in 10th grade when Camille hit, and have some memories of the terrible devastation of Camille that we all had on the Gulf Coast, and then all of the storms from Camille to Katrina and from Katrina to Ida, just preparing in my mind. So how do I deal with this now that I'm mayor of the town? What are my responsibilities? What are the expectations? How can I use my leadership to help others in the community as we approach this. And so much of it really, I guess, depends on staying calm and being rational and using your best judgment and trying not to panic. Although, as we sat and watched the storm coming across the tip of Cuba, we knew it could be us. There was no question about it. It would, every day that it got closer, it was a little more obvious and a little more easing our minds that it appeared it was going to impact our friends in Louisiana directly and us indirectly.
So, we just talked about this just a few minutes ago with Jimmy Rafferty, but as a new mayor, you look around yourself and you see all these dedicated employees of the city who just sort of know what to do to prepare that city. That's got to give you a lot of pride, huh?
Oh, it's amazing. And, I can't say enough good things about our police department. They were there from the beginning, before the storm hit, through the storm, and through the flooding that we had on Monday. Our fire and rescue people, Chief Krebs, has just done an amazing job. And all the public works employees who left their homes and left their families and were there to maintain the functioning of the city of Pascagoula, because, things have to continue through a storm. And thanks to the hard work and dedication of all these people and others, we made it fine. We did okay.
And, to have a guy like you who's lived a life and then almost, you obviously get paid as mayor, but it's almost like you decided to volunteer in a way, because as I mentioned the first time we met, they'd never pay you enough to do the job of mayor. There has to be more to it than that. There has to be a higher calling. But you do have that higher calling, and you then have the ability to express to them how much you appreciate their leadership, how much they appreciate them going beyond a call of duty. And sometimes just being there to pat them on the back and let them know that you notice their great work, it makes a lot of difference, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's a sense of satisfaction that I don't know that I could get from anywhere else. And I'm certainly enjoying it. And I feel blessed to have the opportunity to be mayor of Pascagoula at this particular time. I'm looking forward to the next 4 years.
So how any lingering effects as you analyze where you are today?
No, we really we dodged a bullet, and I know that everyone's saying that on the coast, but Pascagoula and Jackson County really in particular, we had significant thunderstorm bands and unbelievable rain coming in from the Gulf that were just devastating east of us in Hancock, Harrison County, of course, in addition to Louisiana. And then it sort of took a skip, and it was pounding Mobile and Pensacola hour after hour after hour while we were sitting on Sunday. In fact, we had neighbors over for dinner Sunday night. We did not lose power through the storm. And I hate to say a non-event, but we know it could have been terrible. It just wasn't for Pascagoula. Businesses did well. We had very few reports of damage to any business or residents in the city. Now, the flooding that was Monday morning, which was truly a perfect storm, as we had high tide, we had a storm surge, although not extreme, on top of the high tide that prevented the 8 to 10 inches of rain from clearing the ditches in the city. We had a lot of streets flooded, and it got into some homes and a few businesses, but nothing that was damaging. Most of that already has been repaired and cleaned up, and we're quickly getting back to normal.
Well, it's really good to hear that. Sean Tyndall said on the show this week that he was almost reticent to use the word "dodged a bullet" because that was the term I used as well. He said we dodged the brunt, because if you had water in your house, and certainly Jackson County fared well. You had the tragedy in George County. What a tragedy to have a highway that was so used, such as that one, to have it washed out and people just driving off into this chasm.
It's just amazing to even imagine. It terrorizes me to think about the terror that those people must have experienced in the middle of the night, in the middle of the rain, all of a sudden the road beneath them disappearing and them plunging into the 20, 30 foot depth. It's just, it's a terrible, terrible thing.
What Sean Tyndall said is that when you have such a widespread event like this, all this rain and the swelling of our creeks and rivers and potential tornadoes and all the things that come with a storm like this, even though we're on the outside of the core, the impact was still great here in coastal Mississippi in certain places. You just never know what place is going to get hit by more than the other. And the point that he made is, in a situation like this, no matter where you live, anywhere where it rained, you have to be careful. You have to drive careful. And one of the things he said is slow down. Everybody just needs to slow down because you just don't know where that next incident's going to happen. And we want everybody to survive these moments. But you're right. I mean, the terror in that moment there on that highway had to have been unbelievable. And, we'll hear more about that full story at some point. But, we're praying for the people who survived. I heard that some of their injuries are life-threatening. And hopefully that we can, they'll get beyond that and live a wonderful life. But what a terrible situation that was there in George County. Sure. Anything else you want to say on the hurricane before we shift gears?
Well, no, we just feel blessed. You're exactly right. It could happen anywhere. It could be a repeat of Katrina just as quickly on us as anywhere else across the coast. We hope it's never that way, but realistically, we know there's going to be another hurricane, and we know we're going to have to be preparing for those hurricanes as we face them. And just be calm and be prepared and do your best and hope for the best and pray for the best.
I think that's a great way to say it. Hey, when we get on the other side, I want to talk more about the pandemic, your thoughts of you're a dentist, you've been in the medical field your entire career. Talk a little bit more about the vaccine and vaccine hesitancy. The work that Singing River Hospital and that leadership has been doing is just extraordinary. But anyway, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with the mayor of the city of Pascagoula, Jay Willis.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Delbert. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera flips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. I have the mayor of the city of Pascagoula, Jay Willis, with me now. Jay, I wish people could join us during the breaks because Kyle is a thinker, man. He's funny. he adds. That's why I like to. I'm having increasing times with Kyle on the air because it's just so much fun to visit with. But
Kyle needs to
it's
be
good.
on the air.
Say it again.
Kyle needs to be on the air.
Yeah, he needs to be on more often. That's for sure. I bring him in as much as I possibly can, but he's quite a great personality and such a wonderful support for me. So, hey, Mayor, coming back to you. I had this unbelievable experience recently visiting with critical care nurses and critical care teams at Singing River in Ocean Springs with Lee Bond. He joined me there. They went up to the ICU, spent some time in the emergency room. What I observed were some of the most dedicated critical care professionals I've ever seen in my life, and I'm a former paramedic from early in my life. Was going to be an emergency room physician and decided to change my career. Did an internship at the Sun Herald, and the rest is history. But what I observed was heart-wrenching and inspiring at the same time. But man, you're sitting there in Pascagoula with some unbelievable leadership at your local hospital.
Isn't it great to see what's happening at Singing River with all they've been through in the last 10, 15 years, and for Lee to be leading the hospital and all the workers and the citizens of the town. We totally rely on Singing River Hospital for health care here.
Yeah, it is sad to see. There were 16 people on ventilators in the ICU. There were 12 on ventilators in the surgical ICU. There were 3 on ventilators down in the emergency room and in their trauma rooms, waiting for rooms upstairs. It was just heart-wrenching what they're having to deal with. And I've said this many times, but it's sort of like child abuse. It's kind of hard to think about it. It's out of sight, out of mind. Most people, it's better for most people. But in this COVID moment, I wish that our medical professionals and what they're going through on a daily basis was not out of sight, out of mind. Because if I could take all of our listeners with me to show them what I saw, any of them who were hesitant to get a vaccine, they would turn around and get it within a minute.
Absolutely.
So you're a doctor. What's your view on this situation? Why do we have so much vaccine hesitancy?
I think it's a basic distrust of the government, which is very hard to overcome with all the trauma that the government has inflicted on society the last number of years, and just a distrust. And I really feel like that the only solution to this pandemic is vaccinations. And if people could just understand that they're choosing to get COVID if they choose not to get a vaccination, that perhaps that would make a difference. I don't know if anything will make a difference, Ricky. It's sad.
Well, Well, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jay. Can you finish? Yeah.
My perspective with this entire pandemic goes back to the early years of my dental practice. I had been out of dental school probably 6 or 8 years. We didn't wear masks. We didn't wear gloves. If you can imagine working in someone's mouth without gloves, that's the way I was trained in 1979, graduating from dental school at University Medical Center. And that was the standard of care. The thing that changed it was the AIDS epidemic. Because in 1984, 1985, all of a sudden this virus showed up that was extremely destroying many elements of our society and citizens, and you had to protect yourself and others. And all of a sudden, we were wearing gloves, masks, eye protection in treating patients, and it was such a change. But at the time, it was such a terrible disease. And my analogy is, so many of the AIDS patients or the AIDS-prone patients back then were begging for anything they could possibly get from healthcare that would help prevent them from getting AIDS. The stories you heard of people showing up and saying, whatever medication cocktail you have for me, whatever trial drug, please let me have it. I don't want to get this disease. And I look back at those years, 35, 36 years ago, and I wonder why it is that as a society, we don't feel the same seriousness and the need to have the same attitude of, oh my gosh, whatever it takes, let me have it. It doesn't matter if it's not FDA approved. Anything that might keep me or my family or my children or my grandchildren from getting this disease, give it to me. Let's have it. And it's just different. It's a different time.
Jay, I think the story on this virus, when it's all said and done, will be the role that social media played in spreading misinformation. So much misinformation. I think that's really the biggest story. The good news is a Kaiser study recently pointed out that about 30% of the people who have not gotten the vaccine could be convinced to get it. There's also a group in the teens that you're not going to change their mind. And we try to sort through those, because as long as there's a percentage of society that might change their mind and get the vaccine, I'm going to stay focused on trying to get the best information out there as I possibly can and turn them one at a time, because for every person we turn, it's a step in the right direction. And also I might add that it shouldn't take knowing someone who died to get you the vaccine. And hopefully we can continue to turn these numbers. But anyway, I appreciate you so much. And any final words before we get off? We got about a minute left.
No, everything's going good. We're hoping for the best with that we've hit the peak of the COVID pandemic, or this version, and are on our way down. I don't know if the down slope will be as quick as the up slope, but certainly hope it would be. One of the things I shared with Lee Bond is, as a dentist giving injections every day, all day long for 35 years, you run into a lot of people who are very fearful and absolutely cannot stand the thought of needles going into their body. And I think the media is doing such an injustice to the cause by continuing to show 15 or 20 images of needles in arms and thinking that's going to convince somebody to get the vaccine. It's doing just the opposite.
Sometimes it's that simple, just a fear of the needle that keeps people away from it. But think of the needles you'll get if you get COVID. That's the important thing to kind of point out here. Anyway, Jay Willis, the mayor of Pascagoula, thank you for your time. We look forward to talking to you again in the near future.
Thank you, Ricky. Great visiting with you.
You bet. Have a great day. And we'll see you later. We'll see you tomorrow.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Hey, South Mississippi.